On July 27, it was made official that Simone Biles had dropped out of the 2020 Olympics, creating massive waves in the sports industry. Earlier this year, Naomi Osaka had made a similar choice and withdrew from the French Open. Both athletes chose to do this willingly, due to the mental health struggles they had been facing prior to their respective tournaments. This action placed the spotlight on the mental health of athletes worldwide. And before the Olympics ends, I want to explore why this is so important to acknowledge in the grand scheme of mental health. Welcome to PsyPop. In this series, we'll be tackling how pop culture or something in pop culture has displayed a phenomenon where we can learn from it in the context of psychology and mental health. If you like the series and don't want to miss out on future episodes, don't forget to show us support by liking and subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to click on the bell icon to get a notification whenever we post a new video. Before we continue, let's first hear from both athletes on why they had chosen to back out of their sports. Simone Biles said, "I have to focus on my mental health. I just think mental health is more prevalent in sports right now. We have to protect our minds and our bodies and not just go out and do what the world wants us to do." In the case of Naomi Osaka, a tennis player representing Japan, and the inspiration for Biles to resign, she decided to pull out of the French Open to prioritize her mental health earlier this year. In an official statement posted on her Instagram, she shared that she had been suffering from long bouts of depression and huge waves of social anxiety, partly due to the pressures brought about by the world's media. For the 2020 Summer Olympics, Naomi returned from her hiatus but unfortunately lost in this year's games. From both of their statements, we can infer two things. First, that both athletes had been highly pressured to continue persevering through immense struggles even prior to the event. And second, that these feelings were only exacerbated by the event itself, slowly making these feelings fester in their minds. And well, this isn't anything new in the athletic world, however, as athletes have had to deal with mental health concerns for a very long time. Michael Jordan is one of the most prominent athletes in basketball history, and throughout his career took two distinct breaks and retired at what most people would consider the prime of his life. His first break in particular was described as him losing interest in playing basketball and was also influenced by the death of his father, who he was very close to. At the time, he never cited the word mental health or explicitly called his time away from the sport as a mental health break. However, when he did so in the 1990s, the term wasn't popular and his actions perfectly resemble one taking time to recover mentally before he came back to the sport in his career for a second run. The most decorated athlete in the Olympics, Michael Phelps, also created a documentary titled The Weight of Gold, which describes the different mental health issues that athletes face with the Olympics currently. He has also been very vocal about his support on mental health for athletes and on multiple occasions described his own experiences and ways that helped him with his mental health. Just because most athletes do not go on mental health breaks does not mean that they are immune to mental health struggles. Last year, the Players Tribune published 26 essays written by athletes who opened up about their personal struggles. And if you're interested in reading them, I'll link them down in the description below. To expound on this next point, I want to talk about the gymnastics term called twisties and how it affected Simone Biles' performance and played a significant factor in her realizing she needed to start her mental health break in the first place. Twisties is known as a phenomenon termed by actual gymnasts where a gymnast is no longer able to do the twisting skill even if the person has done it hundreds or even thousands of times before throughout their life. Experiencing these may cause the person to have a decrease of proprioception or air sense, and having a lack of air sense may cause injuries, which are quite severe in nature for a gymnast considering they're flipping around in the air. Think about that. The causes of twisties may be due to fear, pressure, anxiety, and other poor mental health related circumstances. Numerous terms have been made by gymnasts to describe scenarios such as bailing and head cases. However, what they all have in common is how they're associated with the mental and emotional state of the athlete. It isn't old news where athletes had to comply with the coach's systems, particularly in the idea of knowing when to rest or quit, especially if one's personal morale is low. Rather, it seems the norm where athletes have no choice but to conform to the pressure and expectations given to them. Looking into Naomi's case, considering how she was placed in the spotlight by both lighting up the cauldron and becoming one of the faces of the Olympics, in regards to pressure, Naomi is no exception to this rule by any means. As a first timer in the Olympics setup, she mentioned how she didn't know how to handle the expectations. This was reflected in her matches where she said, as quoted, "If you watch the match, then you would probably see I feel like there's a lot of things that I counted on that I couldn't rely on today." Hence, there's a need to add importance not only in taking note of their current well-being during the competition, but also in the past few days, weeks, months, and even years. An athlete's story is only spectated by us at its climax. All of the training, trauma, and preparation prior to that day, both physically and mentally, are all stories we never see and have no concept of how truly grueling the experiences had been prior to their mental states. Pressure has been known to affect athletes both in training and in competition proper. How an athlete sees pressure determines whether it may positively impact or negatively impact their performance. These usually occur either by the environment around them, such as expectations or the effects of the audience, or internal feelings, such as their insecurities or lack of confidence. For others, pressure may help them strive to better overcome their limitations. However, negative pressure may not only put their mental health in a vulnerable state, but also put them at the risk of getting injured during a match, such as the case of Biles. Mental illness affects up to 1 in 3 elite athletes every year. The elite sports culture, with its heavy training demands and constant drive to improve performance, only serves to heighten that risk. A 2019 study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, or BMJ, found that an ingrained stigma, low mental health literacy, and hypermasculinity tend to be major barriers to elite athletes seeking mental health treatment. Cultural influencers that the study found to contribute to these barriers include prejudices against women athletes, lower acceptability of mental health symptoms and disorders among non-white athletes, and non-disclosure of religious beliefs. Stigma was the most commonly reported factor preventing elite athletes with mental health issues from seeking any help, in the belief that mental ill health is a sign of weakness rather than the hallmark of a winner, and would be seen as such by peers, managers, and the public as a whole. The American Psychiatric Association, according to Vickers, has noted the dangers of the assumption that athletes should be mentally healthy, and in a bid to increase awareness and remove the stigma surrounding the mental health of athletes, they pointed out the following facts. Mental illness is very likely as common in athletes as in the general population. It is not a sign of weakness and should be taken as seriously as any physical injury. Lastly, getting help will most likely improve, not damage, one's self-confidence. Just as athletes must take breaks after a physical injury, their mental wellness must be prioritized as well. In fact, mental health and physical health often go hand in hand. Regular exercise is known to stimulate the production of serotonin, dopamine, and other chemicals that boost your mood and mental health. Good mental health is linked to longer lives, better cardiovascular health, and athletic performance. Being fit and athletic does not necessarily mean you are mentally healthy. The World Health Organization defines health as a holistic idea comprising your outer, internal, and mental health. It's a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Health consists of more than just your body. You could have a healthy body while suffering mentally and emotionally, as with the case of many athletes. Naomi Osaka wrote in an essay for Time magazine entitled "It's Okay Not to Be Okay," sharing her thoughts on mental health in sports. In it, she said, "Athletes are humans. Perhaps we should give athletes the right to take a mental break from media scrutiny on a rare occasion without being subject to strict sanctions." To add some of my personal thoughts into this, I made this channel more to tackle Philippine mental health stigmas. Speaking of the Philippines, by the way, congratulations to Hidilyn Diaz. But to see the toxicity and negative comments from all walks of life that have been thrown at Biles and Naomi was disheartening, to say the least. Yes, this is their career and pressure is part of the job description of any athlete, but does that mean they have to harm themselves for our entertainment? That they're not allowed a moment of reprieve? As some of the best in the world, they have nothing to prove to us. And we, as an audience, have no right to scream at them to do better, go faster, try harder, when in their position, we could never do better ourselves. If these women don't want to disclose what got them to this point by refusing a press conference, by stepping away from an event that is brutalizing their bodies and their minds, we have no right to turn on them and call them snowflakes or quitters by any means. We would never do this if Naomi broke her wrist and then resigned after, or if Biles suffered a life-threatening injury, which she almost did, by the way, due to the twisties during the Olympics. But since it's a mental health issue and it's only their mental states, suffering it just shouldn't be treated as seriously, right? It just makes me kind of sad. Mental health deserves better, and these women deserve to be treated better. All athletes deserve to be treated better mentally. I'm just glad that there's a large majority of their fans and athletes coming out to support these two and to look at this situation more. The Olympics also started to take notice and are making changes to address the mental health of athletes now, which I find really, really hopeful. I still see hope in this world, and this is a conversation that's been a long time coming. Mental health conversations for athletes were finally placed on a global stage thanks to the honesty and bravery of both Naomi and Simone Biles. The world was on their shoulders, so I only hope these two recover well and know that they inspire the world to care more for others and to care more for themselves. With that, thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel and comment down below any other topic you want us to tackle next. I thank you all for watching. I hope you all take care of yourselves today, and I hope you all have a great day.